the Leo Bumpers and Willie Williams and Joe Foster and the Richardsons and all, and many more that are throughout the county, because we were able to kind of, on a county-wide basis, reach out and get black leaders from the various communities. And they, in turn, would work with those communities and have fish fries and cake sales and whatever it took to raise money to help us to support our movement and to keep people active, because we just didn't have, we weren't financially able to do it without this type of cooperation. And it was through those efforts that I give every community in this county who came to our aid and in their own way supported the movement. And they may not have been seen openly, but I can say for sure that every community in Monroe County helped to support this movement. And today we're so happy that we can say, well, we give all of these leaders and all communities credit for the efforts in getting this thing going.
Let me say this in regards to people that are watching this and listening to this. That is what makes the black struggle so powerful. A lot of times we only see the person out front, but there are some things working behind the scenes to make it happen. Like Ms. Williams at home, making sure the kids safe and going back and forth to school and different things like that, and not raising issues that would bring attention to that the family would get harmed, you know. As a result of this litigation, the first person elected as a result of this litigation being settled, Mr. Alec Roberts became the very first black commissioner in Monroe County. The second person to become commissioner as a result of this was Mr. Charlie McCorvey Jr. He's deceased now. And one of the things that I experienced is when Reverend Brown was running for the Board of Education, because of you guys getting that settled, so forth as redistricting, the white community, I was told this story about a number of times by Mr. Cunningham, and you can help me out on your interpretation of it, that they allowed, first, one of the premises for the suit that the black couldn't get elected countywide.
Right.
So what the white, I was told, you correct me if I'm wrong, I was told that the whites stayed away from the polls in order to get Mr. Brown elected, to try to defeat the case, so that when you went back to federal court, the courts were saying, they could say, look, well, we got a black elected countywide. It can be happening. What their premises for the suit is unfounded. Explain to us some of the workings of that and how you experienced that too. Give me your story on what transpired during that time.
Well, I guess psychologically some things started happening. See, the white politicians had an advantage over us because they had experience in political dealings. But it didn't take us long to copycat and catch on to what was going on. And we realized that we were in a minority, but we had to manipulate that minority and use it in a way that we could block a lot of things from happening, even though we may not could stop it, but we could certainly change the manner in which it was going to be carried out. And in our predominantly black communities like Beatrice and Packers Bend, we could dominate there because we could elect all of the officials, representatives from those particular areas. And we were able to do that. And of course, they had voices on the county boards and whatever, statewide or whatever. And when you put it all together, the black power that we said we didn't like to talk of it as such, but statewide, that black power, thanks to people like Joe Reed, Turner, and many more that I can't think of all of the names, but utilized to get that black power organized statewide. And we began to get black representatives from the state, from each districts, and to change that political structure all over the state. And then not only in Alabama, but that started taking place in all states. And we began to really feel the value of our black power movement, because we began to put people in strategic positions that they could influence the movements. And of course, occasionally I guess you're going to have one or two blacks that will get in there and be influenced by the whites, but I think as a whole, and we can for surely say for her as our local county is concerned, and Wilcox and most of our counties around, our black officials stayed black, and they fought and organized as black leaders and helped to bring about other black leaders, and it give us more power. And even today, we have some black power that we can boast about as a result of those black men and women who were able to stand tall back in the days of the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Now, my history of returning here after my military time, Mr. Cunningham was my mentor,
right?
And you. I want to go back to my father, Willie Howard. That's how I found out about you and Miss Nanny.
Mm-hmm.
My father and you all's family, when we would go to Monroeville, there was one of the people that Daddy was interacting with us as a family was you, Mr. Williams. That's how.
Right.
That's how my mom. After my father passed, my mom's and your relationship lasted until she passed.
Right.
And that's how I first became aware of you. And my father would talk about you and Mr. Cunningham and that relationship. If you can remember anything in relationship with my father working with you, any situation or anything other than being supportive of you in that relationship, how
he and your mother
mm-hmm.
were one of the strongest couples that we had in this district, in this era. And of course, that was felt throughout the county, because we had, like I said, we organized and we had strong leadership in every community in this county. And certainly on this end, Mr. and Mrs. Howard was number one. And she in particular put on sales and bake cakes or whatever was needed to raise funds and help the churches in this era. I didn't mention Pastor McIntosh, who was a very staunch civil rights leader in this era,
mm-hmm.
and for the whole county. And people like that, you just don't ever forget them.
Mm-hmm.
But I could go on and on when it comes to individuals. Like I said a while ago, we had representation from all of the communities,
mm-hmm.
and we were very strong.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the best things that could have happened, because when you have been brought up in a community where black people are taught to oppose black people, to disagree,
mm-hmm.
and that becomes a part of your mentality, it's kind of hard to turn that issue around.
Mm-hmm.
But thank God, and I have to give him the credit, because I don't think it was any of us as individuals that could have done it
mm-hmm.
without God's help. But somehow, because a few of the smaller black leaders was able to come together and make contacts and create issues that brought the attentions of this nation and this state to the black leadership, and began to recognize it as such, and instead of trying to push it back and keep it on the cover as they had done down through the years. but they too had to recognize that it was time for black people to be brought out front and given the full privilege of voting rights and the full privilege of first-class citizenship. Because we didn't have the rights, we don't need to talk about you as a citizen if you're going to be deprived of your voting rights.
Well, I remember my dad telling me about the churches. I knew about more New Purchase up on the hill and Reverend McIntyre.
Right.
But my dad would tell me about another church was down in Tunnel Spring called Antioch, which is Antioch up on the hill now. Down in Monroeville, name some churches where NAACP meetings were held and where people would meet and plan strategies and things that y'all had to do.
Well, we would do it in Monroe. The two basic churches that we usually go to, the biggest churches there, and that were Bethel and Morning Star, which I was a member, and of course we always had the cooperation of the pastors and the deacon boards and all that to use them. But now when we spread out all over the county, we had our meetings at various churches. And of course, sometimes you always had, I figured we had the support of all the pastors, even though the pastors, like in the rural churches, pastors didn't live in that community. So like Packers Bend and places like that, the pastor may not be there, but we had the blessings of the pastors and the deacon boards and all that. And we were able to coordinate and get those communities to cooperate. And it was through this means that we were able to get this political strength that we needed. And when we did start to run in black candidates, we were able to get some black candidates elected from all those areas, predominated black communities.
In my years of living here, I've reached that 70 that God promises, and I'm working strictly on grace now, according to the Bible.
Right.
You guys, you are how old, Mr. Williams?
85.
85. And then?
83.
83. Y'all just like me and Mary. Me and Mary 2 years apart. But think about some of the. I can remember Mr. Crawford. Mr. Crawford used to tell me about my father, and used to tell me about Mr. Bob Crawford. I'm talking on the hill. He used to tell me about my dad and Mr. Cunningham and the Klan, and he used to tell me that my dad was the number one man with Monroe Eichner years ago, so for the Klan and making sure the Klan didn't get to where they needed to get to, who they wanted to get to. But tell me about some of the situations that occurred here in Monroe County. I know about the time that they tried to get to Mr. Cunningham. You may have some recollections of that, but tell me about some of the, I might say escapes or getaways or whatever, where the Klan had planned on one thing and something else occurred. Any of them, if you can recognize them or remember them.
Some of them, some didn't materialize, but there have been several indirect and behind-the-scene moves to kind of get us disorganized and discourage us from meeting and things of that nature. We've had some burning of crosses and some hood marches. I mean, I can recall when the Ku Klux used to meet over the Coliseum, and of course I live right across the street from the Coliseum, and they would meet and march and come out from the Coliseum right in front of my house and go through town with the hoods on and all that kind of stuff. But believe it or not, my children, and one of them is sitting here right now, they used to go out to the road and laugh at them and wave at them and not showing no fear. They thought they were there to play with. They didn't know. They thought they were just like a Thanksgiving parade or something.